Okay, get this. Today's deep dive is all about keeping tabs on things that just won't stay put. We're talking multiple moving targets, drones, self-driving cars, you name it. But here's the catch. Our sensor's got tunnel vision. It can only see a tiny area at once. Can you imagine the headache this causes?
It's like trying to watch a whole soccer match through a straw,
Right.
right? You'd only catch a glimpse here and there, missing most of the action.
Exactly. And it's not like these targets are cooperating. They're zipping around, popping in and out of sight, maybe even ducking behind obstacles. It's a real-world game of hide and seek, but the stakes are way higher than just bragging rights.
What's fascinating is that this isn't just some thought experiment. This problem is a big deal for things we rely on every day. Think about air traffic control, where they need to keep planes from playing bumper cars in the sky. Or imagine self-driving cars navigating a city. Missing a pedestrian or another vehicle, even for a split second, could spell disaster.
Okay, so the pressure is on. How do we even begin to wrangle these rogue sensors? I took a peek at the research you shared, and let me tell you, it involves some serious math.
Yeah, we're not talking about eyeballing it here. At the core of this whole thing is something called a Bernoulli filter. Now, before you run for cover, think of it this way. The Bernoulli filter is like having a secret weapon against uncertainty. It takes all that chaos, the target's movements, the sensor's limitations, and helps us make a good guess about where a target is most likely to be.
A good guess. In all that chaos, I'm listening.
It's all about probabilities. The Bernoulli filter helps us figure out the chances of a target being in a particular spot at a particular time. Imagine a weather forecast. Instead of telling you it will rain, it says there's a 75% chance of rain. The Bernoulli filter does something similar with our targets.
So it's less about exact coordinates and more about creating a probability map. But hold on. The papers also mention something called Gaussian distributions. Where do those fit in?
You're picking up on the finer points. Gaussian distributions are our way of keeping the map from spiraling out of control. They're based on the idea that a target's movement can be roughly modeled using a bell curve. You know, that familiar hump-shaped graph.
Right, like a bell curve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're basically assuming that targets are more likely to move in a somewhat predictable way rather than teleporting all over the place. And guess what? This assumption actually helps simplify the math a lot, making it possible for the sensor to keep up with the action in real time.
Makes sense. If things were teleporting willy-nilly, this whole tracking game would be a nightmare. But okay, so by assuming targets generally move in a somewhat predictable way, we can narrow down the possibilities. That must make our sensor's job a bit easier, right?
Precisely. It's all about making smart compromises to handle the messiness of the real world. And you know what? This is where things get really interesting. But I think we need to hear more about GOSPA to fully grasp this.
You're right. Let's dive into the heart of the sensor strategy. I'm ready when you are. All right, so we've got these sensors trying to nail down the location of our targets using this whole probability map thing. But how do we actually measure how well they're doing? It's not like we can just give them a gold star for effort.
That's where JOSPA swoops in to save the day. Remember that hide-and-seek analogy? Well, imagine there's a scoreboard involved, and you're being judged not just on finding the hiders, but on how well you played the game overall.
JOSPAP, is that what the judges are using to keep score?
It sounds like something out of a spy thriller, right?
It does.
But it actually stands for Generalized Optimal Subpattern Assignment.
Catchy.
It's a way for us to evaluate how our sensor is performing in this target tracking game, and it's way more sophisticated than just seeing how close the sensor gets to a target.
Okay, break it down for me. How does JOSPA actually work?
So JOSPA is all about balance. It looks at three main things: localization error, missed detections, and false alarms. Think of it like a three-legged stool. Each leg is crucial for stability.
Okay, I'm picturing this JOSPA stool. But can you unpack those three legs a bit more for me?
Absolutely. Let's start with localization error. It's basically how accurately our sensor is pinpointing the target's location. Are we hitting the bullseye, or are we way off in left field? Then there are misdetections, those frustrating moments when a target is right there, but our sensor completely misses it. And finally, we have false alarms. That's when our sensor gets overly excited and mistakes something else for a target, maybe a rogue shadow or a bird flying by.
So it's not just about getting close, it's about being accurate and knowing what you're looking at. I bet JOSPA assigns penalties for each of these errors, right?
You're catching on quickly. It's like a game where you score points for accuracy but lose points for mistakes. JOSPA helps us find the sensor actions that minimize the overall cost, balancing those three factors. It's like a master strategist, always looking for the most advantageous move.
This is where things get really interesting for me. It's not about blindly chasing targets anymore. It's about strategy, right? Strategically deciding where to look to get the best possible picture of what's happening.
Exactly. It's like playing chess with your sensor. Gauss-Appliqué helps it become a much more effective player in this tracking game, making smart, calculated moves. And that's where the concept of myopic versus non-myopic planning comes into play.
Myopic, like someone who needs glasses to see.
That's a perfect way to put it. Myopic planning is like grabbing the most tempting donut from the box without a thought for the sugar rush or the other delicious donuts you might miss. Non-myopic planning, on the other hand, is like savoring each bite, considering all the flavors and pacing yourself for maximum enjoyment.
Okay, I can definitely get behind the savoring each bite approach. So, myopic sensor planning might make decisions that seem good right now but could lead to trouble down the road. How does that actually play out in our target tracking game?
Think about a sensor using myopic planning. It might get fixated on the closest target and completely miss another one about to enter its field of view. Or even worse, imagine a sensor stuck behind an obstacle because it was too focused on the immediate target to see the bigger picture.
Ouch, that's gotta hurt. It's like driving down a dead-end street because you only looked at the first house on the block. So how does this whole non-myopic planning thing help our sensor avoid those kinds of blunders?
One technique these research papers explore is called Monte Carlo tree search, or MCTS. It's like giving the sensor the ability to simulate different possible futures, kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure for sensors.
So the sensor's playing out different scenarios, weighing the pros and cons of each decision, and then choosing the path that leads to the best possible outcome.
Precisely. And because it's considering multiple steps ahead, it can anticipate obstacles and make smarter, more strategic decisions. Imagine a drone flying through a forest. MCTS would help the sensor anticipate upcoming trees and adjust the drone's flight path accordingly.
That's impressive. Okay, so we've got our sensor thinking ahead, navigating obstacles like a champ. But there's still this question of when to stick with a known target and when to go searching for new ones. It seems like there's a constant push and pull between exploiting what you already know and exploring for new information. How does GOSPA factor into all of this?
That's an excellent point. It's a delicate dance between exploitation and exploration, and it's another area where GOSPA really shines. The GOSPA framework actually encourages the sensor to every now and then check back in on areas where new targets might pop up.
So it's like the sensor is constantly asking itself, do I stick with what I know, or do I take a gamble and see what's hiding over there?
Exactly. And that's what makes it so effective at tracking multiple targets, even with limited information. It's all about making calculated risks and adapting on the fly.
This is way more intricate than I initially realized. It's like a whole new level of sensor intelligence. But we're all about real-world applications here, right? What does this GOSPA-driven approach actually mean for us in our everyday lives? This is all very cool, but let's get down to brass tacks. Why should all of this matter to, someone who isn't a sensor engineer? What's the big so what here?
It's all about making our world smarter and safer. Think about air traffic control for a second. You've got hundreds of planes in the air at any given time, all moving at crazy speeds, and one small error could lead to a major disaster.
Okay, I'm starting to see the gravity of the situation. Our little sensor buddy has got its work cut out for it.
You got that right. GOSPA-driven sensors could be a game changer for air traffic control. We could potentially prevent collisions, minimize delays, and make air travel even safer. And that's just one example.
What other areas could benefit from this kind of sensor upgrade?
Well, we already touched on self-driving cars, and this is where it gets really exciting. Imagine a world where autonomous vehicles can navigate even the most chaotic streets, effortlessly tracking pedestrians, cyclists, and other vehicles, all thanks to GOSPA-powered sensors.
It's like giving those cars superhuman senses, right? They'd be able to see things even we might miss.
Exactly. And this technology isn't limited to just cars and planes. Picture a busy factory floor where robots and humans are working side by side. GOSPA-driven sensors could prevent accidents by helping robots anticipate the movements of their human colleagues, leading to a safer and more efficient workplace.
That's incredible. It's like we're on the cusp of a world where machines can finally understand and respond to their surroundings with human-like awareness.
It's about creating a world with fewer surprises, fewer accidents, and ultimately a better quality of life for everyone. And the best part is we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Okay, now you've got me really thinking big. What does the future hold for this technology? Give me the high-flying, pie-in-the-sky vision.
Imagine a future where sensors can do more than just track objects. Think about personalized healthcare. What if wearable sensors could analyze your vital signs and alert you to potential health problems before they even arise? Or imagine smart cities that use sensor networks to optimize traffic flow in real time, reducing congestion and emissions.
It's like taking the concept of a smart home and expanding it to our entire world. A smart planet.
That's a fantastic way to put it. But here's the thing. It's not just about gathering massive amounts of data. It's about what we do with it. That's what makes this geospay-driven approach so powerful. It's about creating truly intelligent systems that can not only see the world around us, but understand it and help us make smarter decisions.
So it's not just about having eyes everywhere. It's about having a brain that can actually process and make sense of all that information. It's like the difference between simply watching a game and actually understanding the strategies at play.
You nailed it. That's the beauty of this research. It's pushing the boundaries of what's possible with sensor technology, and it has the potential to revolutionize everything from transportation and healthcare to manufacturing and urban planning.
Wow, who knew that diving deep into the world of agile sensors could be so mind-blowing? It's like a glimpse into a future where technology enhances our lives in ways we can barely even imagine.
That's the power of asking questions and exploring new ideas, and it's what the deep dive is all about. So to our listeners, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and never stop learning, because the more we learn about the world around us, the better equipped we are to shape the future we want to see.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of agile sensors and their amazing potential. Until next time, stay curious.